pop for.
Oh, the one that you got for.
We're live.
Yeah.
Oh.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the I Tap That Cigar Show presented by Corona Cigar. I'm your host, Kevin from Cigar Prop, and I'm coming to you live from the Drew Estate Experience Acid Studios here on the sunny Gulf Coast of Florida. Joining me, as always, is my co-host, Kerr Viajante of Stogie Road Cigars. Kerr.
Good evening, Kevin.
Good evening. It seems like not too bad. We didn't do a bully show yesterday, so it feels like a month since we've done a show together.
It does. And, a lot going on. The Super Bowl.
We were at a wedding, so we didn't watch it.
We were at a wedding.
A friend of ours, a cigar guy at that, got married on the Super Bowl.
I saw the kilt.
He's not a football guy, so he didn't care.
I saw the kilt.
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked it.
Oh, thank you very much. Someone asked me if I was Jewish. When I looked at they saw my kilt and my getup, and they're like, "Are you Jewish?" And I'm like, "I'm Irish." Something I didn't know. I didn't know. I know the Irish and the Scottish wear kilts. I did not know there was
I never heard of a Jewish kilt.
Yeah,
No, I don't think it's a kilt. It's like a one piece garment.
I feel if we talk about it anymore, it'll be considered wrong. It'll be like we're going to say it's 2023. We're going to say something wrong, and here we are going to get canceled. So we're just going to move along on that topic of what any ethnicity calls anything.
Then move along, Kevin.
That's your move along.
Talking.
So
yes, a possibility that
we are going to move along because I need a cigar. I work today, so I haven't had a cigar all day. But, I know. I did smoke like 8 yesterday, but I'm still jonesing for a cigar. So let's get right into it with the CigarMedics humidimeter, cut and light. Remember, with the CigarMedics humidimeter, you'll always know when to hold them and know when to smoke them. Kerr, what are you smoking tonight?
I'm smoking the Sandela.
Oh, right on. And I failed to remind everybody that in the background is producer Jessica. Say hello, Jessica.
Hello.
Yay,
And what is Jessica smoking tonight?
I am actually smoking one of Karen Berger's 25th anniversary cigars that's made by a collab with her and AJ.
Oh, AJ Fernandez. I was one of the lucky 50 people that got a signed box. She sent it to me for my birthday. Kerr, what was your
the guru?
It does. Kerr, what was your cigar at?
It's actually a little dry in the 53.
Ooh.
Mine is good. Mine's at 62% humidity. So
what's that, Jess?
What's the weather been like by you?
It's been funky. I let this sit out too. I think I was dry boxing a little bit. I think I might have dry trunked it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So right on. And then tonight I'm smoking my very first Ferio Tego cigar, the Generoso 2022. Nice. I have smoked plenty of the Timeless, which I keep going back to. But I got this cigar in one of the Cigar of the Month clubs that I subscribe to, and I've been saving it since forever because I knew eventually we would have Michael on the show. We had to cancel on him because the hurricane came and shut everything down, which irritated me because it was like a year of trying to get him on the show the first time. So,
I won an autographed box of Timeless. It was autographed by Michael on Boston Jimmy show.
Oh, that's right. I do remember that.
Yeah. Fantastic cigar.
Yeah, I love it. I was a fan of the old Timelesses as well.
Timelesses?
Yes.
So Jessica, have you had that cigar before, the one you're smoking?
I have.
It's really good.
It is really good. It has a nice little spicy kick to it.
Mm-hmm.
It is.
right
It is.
off the bat.
That's
Yeah,
no joke.
it's probably my favorite Berger cigar. It really is a fantastic smoke. All right. Well, why don't we kick this thing off? Got a bunch of people here. I didn't go over the comment section to see who. Chris Walmer, Cigar Show Tim. What's going on? Everybody that's watching. So, all right.
Hey, let me ask you a question. Did you ever
Yeah.
email me the address of the person I need to send the deconstructeds to?
Yeah, I put it in our group chat last week. Like,
Okay.
yeah. Okay. Yeah. Robert King
Yeah.
Jr.
Okay. Yeah. I want to
So-
get that to him. I think that got buried somewhere.
And
Okay.
that's part of the problem with our chat. Sometimes I miss stuff too.
You probably sent the address, and about 5 seconds later, Jennifer sent 50 pictures of a dog, cat,
Yeah.
and deer.
That's it.
Maybe.
So who knows? So, all right. Before we bring on our guest, let's take a moment to thank all of our partners for making this show happen each and every week. Thank you, JC Newman Cigars, CigarMedics, Amendola Cigars. We are the muscle. Illusione Cigars, deep in flavor, deep in your mind. K by Karen Berger Cigars, Corona Cigar, and of course, Drew Estate and Experience Acid. And it always gets me pumped. All right, so waiting patiently in the Experience Acid Green Room is Michael Herklots of Ferio Tego Cigars. Michael, welcome to the show.
What's happening?
Finally. It's been a long time. It's been like a year and a half of trying to get you on this show. You blew up real big and started doing all these better shows and fancier shows, and
all lies, all completely untrue.
Oh,
I'm
my God.
honored to share this show with a guru like yourself.
He's the guru.
You know,
True.
there are times when we can't make it work with a guest, and they end up and it's back and forth, and it takes like a year sometimes. Like Sean Williams, after like a year, he's finally coming on the show. It was the same thing with Rick Rodriguez, but then like when they came on the show, I feel like I was prepared. Like a year ago, I wouldn't have been prepared for you. Like there'd have been a crappy interview, and today though,
setting a high bar here, bro.
I feel like today, after getting to know you and finding out that you're funny, I didn't know you were funny. Oh my God. You're hilarious. And then, you know, because we always see you, you know, like it's prestigious. And then I met you at PCA. Like I knew you were
just such a letdown, isn't it? In person, like
it was like
the polish on the gram,
yeah,
and then you know the wheels just fall off in person. It's terrible.
That's it. Hey, Jess, can you put a background up?
Oh,
So
sure.
I'm just my
Sure
producer.
can.
She's Instagramming, you know, for
I
the
am
show.
not-
So,
I actually am
Jessica.
not doing anything.
Oh, okay. I
So-
see that. Yeah.
Apparently.
Yeah, apparently. So yes, but yes, I saw you at PCA,
All right.
and I was I'm like, he's funny. Yeah, even before I saw you at Great Smoke.
Great smoke.
And yeah, you're
Okay.
funny then, but seeing you in person, you're really, yeah. I was like, so now.
So
it's
here
all
we are,
come to
man.
fruition.
Listen,
Here we are.
I remember reaching out to you very early as you started doing your stuff, especially all the TikTok stuff, and just telling you just how impressed I am that you've gone all in, and you know it's great, man. It really
We
is.
did, like I said, there was a point. It was on LinkedIn was where we talked, and there was a point to where like I was kind of at a low point. Like it was bad. You know, like I said, Kerr knows that a lot of people, you know, questioning whether I deserve to be in this industry or not, and you really gave me some words of encouragement that really kept me going.
Here's the thing. Everyone deserves to be in an industry doing something that they love. And every one of us at one time or another was new to the business. And there's kind of two options. Either some folks reach out and extend help and encouragement, and then others forget that they were new once too, and they try and hold you back. And that's really a shame, because the only way I'm doing what I'm doing and you're doing what you're doing is because of the first group. That there's enough great people in this business who reach out and say, man, you're doing a great job. Just keep doing what you're doing. And those people who are, talking down or making fun of, deep down, it really is like that grade school mentality of they are jealous and they wish they could do it and they can't do it. They don't have the confidence to do what you do. And so rather than let you shine, they'd rather, turn your light out. And I'm not a fan of that mentality at all. No. So I think what you're doing is great. I mean, look at your sponsor roster, bro.
I know.
I was just thinking of it when the reel was spinning. I mean, that's got to feel so good, bro.
It does. It does feel good to have all of these great companies, behind us, believing in us, and just year after year continuing with us. And even when some companies are cutting back severely, they're always like, hey man, even when everything that we've got going on, I've had to reach out and like, hey, here's what's going on. They're like, we don't care. We're still with you.
Well, so, I know Jeff and Corona has been a huge supporter of yours from the beginning.
Oh yeah.
So huge supporter of mine. And I'm actually headed down his way end of this month, 28th, 1st, and 2nd. I'll be in 3 stores back to back doing Ferio Tego events with Balvini. So
are you gonna be at Tampa?
Tampa on the 28th.
Okay.
And then I want to say Sand Lakes and Heathrow.
Okay, yeah, Tampa's closer for me, so February 28th. Corona, I'm going to write that down.
It's going to be great, but I see you got this 10% promo order. We don't run deals, but if you got a coupon code, now's the time. Scoop up some Ferio Tego, scoop up some Timeless. It's great.
That's it, and we're going to get into those in a little while, and but we want to for people that may not have seen you on other interviews, we're going to kind of go back a little ways. Michael, so you're either known as Michael Herklots, or like when like Saka's talking about you, it's just Herklots, Herklots. Has there ever been a Mike or Mickey? Mike?
Yeah, of course.
Has there been?
It's interesting. My name has changed over the years. When I was a kid, it was only Mike, only. And I go back home and it's Mike Herklots. That's it. Mike. My parents call me Mike. My sister calls me Mike. All my high school friends call me Mike. When I got to college, it was Herc.
Okay.
Herc was all 4 years of Boston. Everyone called me Herc. When I moved to New York in 2002, my business cards said Michael. And I remember thinking, I think it's time to be Michael. So then I was Michael really since 2002. But interestingly, it's funny how different names kind of like float. So anyone who works for Ashton and half of the old Nat Sherman sales crew calls me Herc. So if I hear someone say Herc, that's some real inside baseball, like it's somebody I know. And there's like maybe 3 people that call me Herky, and then Herklots. But yeah, I was Mike probably up until 18.
All right, we got a friend of ours, Jimmy. He's like, he's in his mid-30s. I'm like, it's about time. You're gonna have to scale that back. It's gonna have to be a Jim or James. We're gonna have to scale back to Jimmy. I've never met. Well, you got Boston, but it's Boston Jimmy.
Jimmy.
So it's not really a Jimmy. So he gets away with that. So Carrie. Well, I don't think I ever asked you that. What is the throughout grade school and then growing up? What was the your name? The progress.
It was always Carrie. Growing up, when I got into college, nobody knew my first name until I think senior year.
Oh yeah, because your last name's Horny.
Last name's Horny. Is always, we're gonna go over to Horny. Let's go see Horny. That's the name. Someone would say, "Hey, let's go over to Carrie's." They'd be like, "Who?"
Yeah. Okay.
Kerry Horny. So unless the coaches, then it was just your full name. It was Kerry Horny.
Oh yeah.
But to be honest with you, I don't have a real preference. I mean,
just
someone calls me Mike. They call me Mike. I tend to introduce myself as Michael, but you should hear some of the things people call me.
Yeah, just not Mikey. Just not Mikey.
I don't mind Mikey. A handful of people call me Mikey.
So, okay, that's kind of a little kid's name.
I mean, listen, if I met you for the very first time, and you just came over out of nowhere and was like, Mikey, how you doing? That might be weird.
Yeah,
but I mean, what do I care?
That's it. And speaking of like child, we actually it took some digging. We actually have, and I think you're wearing the same coat as you are tonight. We actually have a picture of you as a young child. There it is. There is young Mike. There is young Mikey.
I can't believe you found it.
I know it is. It's like I said.
I have to talk to my parents about that one.
That's it. Just always known about your style, but let's. Yeah, so your parents' childhood growing up in Danielson, Connecticut. Let's start there. How'd the family get to Connecticut?
My dad was a pediatrician, retired, alive but retired. Great health. My mom, an art teacher, and we grew up in the town that my dad grew up in.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so he opened up a family practice, operated his doctor's office right out of our house. And I have a twin sister, Sarah, and she and I used to go into the waiting room and entertain the sick kids waiting to go see the doctor. And it was a great way to grow up. Then ultimately, my dad joined the local hospital, closed the practice, and but we stayed there. Actually, I just saw Seth Jones jump in. Seth and I grew up together in Danielson. He's a great cigar smoker. But yeah, I had a great childhood. I mean, totally ideal. I mean, obviously, I must have if I ended up with a degree in smashing drums and I worked full-time in the cigar business. That is clearly the result only of incredibly supportive parents who said I could do anything I wanted to do and be anything I wanted to do.
And in such a small town, I think Danielson only had I think it was in 2015, only had 10,000 residents. So
it's a little more than that, but I mean, I used to joke that there were more people in a building in New York City than there were in the town I grew up in.
Yeah.
But it's a great town, very northeast corner of the state of Connecticut. It's the opposite of the other corner. The other corner, the Martha Stewart Greenwich corner, our corner is called the Quiet Corner, and it's an old textile area right on the border of Rhode Island, just below Massachusetts. It's a beautiful town. It's a simple town, great people, a lot of pride, and I'm really proud to be from there.
Well, what about your family lineage? So that I know only because of your website. So you have your family crest. Here a dude beating a bunch of snakes, which is awesome. But where does the Herklots hail from?
Herklots is Dutch.
Okay.
And there's some Irish and other stuff along my dad's lineage. Mom's side is mostly Italian, with a few other Euro thrown in there too. But just to keep it simple, Dutch and Italian is generally how I identify.
So what's the what? Do you know what this represents?
No idea.
Oh, you
know
no
what
idea?
I do. What do you mean? Do I know?
Okay, I'm like about blow my mind. I'm like, you don't know a kick-ass graphic like that.
So on the Herklots coat of arms, which you won't be able to see, but it's there. In the center of the family crest is a shield, and in the shield is that image, and it's Hercules fighting the Hydra, which was one of his 7 great adventures or whatever it's called. I forget the name of it. And so there's a context to that image as it relates to the Herklots name, and the translation that we use as a family is Hercules strikes the Hydra and disposes of its evils. There are lots of different kind of loose translations in all the different ways Ferio Tego is kind of used in history. There's another translation that is strike and defend, And so that's the translation that we use as a company: strike and defend.
So what does that mean? What does that mean? Strike and I know, and not as in the literal translation of strike and defend. What does that mean to you? What is Ferio Tego? What does that represent to you?
Well, I mean, just on a very high level, Ferio Tego is the Herklots family motto, and I just always loved the way it sounded. It sounds strong, and so I've loved it. I trademarked it years and years ago just to protect it, thinking maybe I would do something with it someday. But it's interesting now in the story that is Ferio Tego, as a company, we really did strike at a moment when things were difficult and we did not know what the future necessarily held. But there was an opportunity to do something finally and do it on our own. And so we struck at the opportunity to create our own company and go it ourselves. And at the same time, we were then able to acquire the brands that were formerly owned and sold by Nat Sherman International. Those are brands and blends that either I developed during my time there or that I had the honor to preserve and maintain over my time there. And those brands were going to go away. And so the ability to defend those brands and restore them to market and continue a legacy under the Ferio Tego umbrella was something that was very important to me, my business partner, Brendan. And so it certainly wasn't intentionally connected to the story, but I do think it really does ring true how the Ferio Tego translation really resonates in the authenticity of the Ferio Tego story.
Yeah, that's super awesome. Yeah, like I said, you trademarked it years ago, and then it actually came back, and now it means, it's cool. I love that. I love that meaning. I love what it means for you. Did you come from a long line of cigar smokers? Is that where your love? I don't know your dad.
First in line. I'm first in line. First in line.
So where did you sneak off? We always hear the story. I snuck off when I was like 7, had a cigar.
I never smoked. I didn't drink. I didn't do any. I was a good kid. I never did any. I was a lifelong asthmatic, which my father, being a pediatrician, you can imagine how proud he was the day I told him I started enjoying cigars. But then I went back to them and I said, but you said don't let asthma stand in my way. I can do anything I want to do, be anything I want to be. Don't let asthma, be an excuse not to pursue something great. I think he was probably thinking football, but hey, what are you going to do? No, I went to Berklee College of Music in Boston, and every night I would take a different walk through the city. And my roommate, one of my roommates at the time, Chris Brown, who might just pop in on this show, because he's still a cigar smoker, lives in Pittsburgh. He and I used to take a different walk through town. And one day we walked by a cigar bar on Newbury Street called Cigar Masters. It's 1998. And he said, oh, let's go in. I want to get a cigar. And, I have asthma, I don't smoke, and I have no money. Why on earth would I go in? But in he went, and I followed him in. And my life changed completely the moment I walked through that door. It was everything I had never seen all at once. There were leather chairs and jazz playing and men dressed up with brown things and glasses. And it was, I just couldn't believe it. And so he got a cigar and explained to me what the process was. And I took a puff of his. It was an Ashton Classic Panatella. And I just remember really enjoying it. And I remember not dying. That was the other thing. I remember I took a puff and was very deliberate about keeping the smoke here and letting it out and thinking to myself, I'm fine. And, ooh, that's really interesting. And I like that. So then obviously I was a broke college music student. So, the premium cigar hobby wasn't exactly in my wheelhouse, but it was also 1998. And so we were at towards the end of the boom, but not at the end of the boom yet. And so there were lots of events happening and opportunities to do tastings. And so I would go to local stores and meet the employees and the owners and the managers and just get as much information as I could. And then ultimately got a job doing retail in Boston at a kiosk in the Prudential Center Mall because I knew I couldn't afford the hobby. And so I figured if I could get a job, then maybe I could get a discount, and then I could participate.
So meanwhile, you're going to college. What did you want to be? What was your end game when you started college before cigars got you hooked?
Drums. I wanted to be a drummer.
Like for just a band. You just
my discipline was really focused in jazz.
Oh, okay.
So I did small band and big band jazz and played a lot all through college. Then I started working with songwriters and so I played a lot. Originally, I wanted to graduate in 3 years and just get out, but I did 5 semesters in a row full time, and really I kind of cracked up, to be honest with you. I mean, I was so burnt out, and now I've been working in cigars too, and I was gigging, and it was just way too much. And so I ended up going part-time for my last 2 years, which was great because it allowed me a lot of time to work in the cigar business, and it allowed me a lot of time to practice and to gig. And so I was playing a lot professionally for my last 2 years. Then I moved to New York in 2002 with a band. And so we played a ton in the city. We played at CBGB's. We played,
nice.
all over. We did a little tour, a couple different bands over those early years. So then I did a lot more songwriter and rock and theater stuff and less jazz stuff when I got to New York, but still with the full-blown pursuit that I would make it as a drummer.
Mike, I did have a question for you, Michael. When you were talking about the 1998 and having all the makings of a future cigar, makes a cigar smoker, asthmatic, broke, college and all those wonderful things. As you started to get more involved and go to these different events and meet more people, is there anybody you met during that time that was really influential, that really stands out that you recall?
Yeah, of course. I mean, so right off we're talking 1998, 1999. Right. Most influential was a guy named David Kitchens. David was the general manager of Gloucester Street Cigar Company in Boston. He actually offered me a job early, but I turned it down for this mall job because it was easier and I could go to work. I could go to school and I could do my homework sitting at this cart. But David was a serious mentor of mine and actually became the general manager at Davidoff in New York City, who hired me when I moved to New York in 2002. So wow. David, for sure, in the early years, number one. Number two, or equally number one, was my first boss at the cart was a guy named David Walker, because he literally gave me the keys, and he had bought the business and said he didn't have time to run it, and handed me the keys and said, "You figure it out." And I did. I called all my buddies and I said, "I got good news and bad news. The good news is we all have discounts. The bad news is you guys have to work." And so we would do like 2-hour shifts. I'd close the cart up and I'd take the keys, and then the next guy would come and meet me in the mall, and I'd throw him the keys and he'd open it for 2 hours. I'd go to class, and then we'd meet up somewhere else and do it again. So I learned, I mean, it was a scrappy business, but I learned a lot early on because I was given the freedom and the trust to be able to do it. So those two things were really influential. And then fast forward to 2000, I met George Brightman. George was at the time the director of business development for Cigar Aficionado. He used to come to Boston when they were doing a big smoke, and he would come and hang out at Gloucester Street. And so he was a real help. But honestly, even the customers I had, I mean, don't forget, I was 19, 20, yeah. 21, and everybody made me feel like I was one of them. I mean, I look at 19-year-olds now. I look at pictures of myself at 19, yeah. And I'm like, why would these guys want to hang out with a kid?
Why would anybody give me keys to this place?
Bro, I mean, it's bonkers. So, like in hindsight, I'm so grateful to all these folks who really treated me like an adult, and whether that was in their company or whether that was just as a result of the job I had or whatever. It was an incredible opportunity very early on to act like an adult, to be an adult. It was.
Going to these events and these tastings, was there a manufacturer, that you went to an event, you're like, oh my God, this guy I want to be this guy, and
I met Rocky Patel in 2000 when he was selling Indian tobacco. I think he was still working as a lawyer, but he was selling Indian tobacco cigars, and we stayed very close. There were some reps back then that were just, they were just thoughtful. I mean, some of the younger guys. There's a guy, Johan Zwan. He's still with Davidoff. He was our Davidoff rep back then. A guy named Andrew Panagopoulos, who was an Altadis rep. They were all, just to see people work and make a career with cigars was like mind blowing to me.
Right.
And so there was certainly an inspiration / aspiration to sort of be like them. There was a guy named Howard Smith, real old timer, who was the general rep. Actually, was the Villazon rep. He just passed away. It was really great to be able to talk to veterans in those cases of industry and hear their stories and learn about what they did. But manufacturing really, so Rocky was the first one for real. After that was Dr. Martinez Cuenca from Hoya de Nicaragua when I first started at Davidoff, but certainly the most influential, that remains the most influential, is Manuel Quesada. I met him in 2002 when I got to New York, and David Kitchens and Manolo were very close, but I'm very close in age to his daughters. And so I went to Dominican in 2003, and he was gracious enough to have us for a week, spending time in the factory. And I connected very deeply with Manolo, but also with his kids. And so over those years, I've said before, the idea of family, we're family, this is all family, that tends to be, I think, overused and abused at times.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
in the case of the Quesada family, it is really understating the intimacy of our relationship. We really are our family.
And I've heard that so many times about the Quesada family. Like I said, just so many people meeting them, and then just that family just opens up. It's whatever you need, whatever you want to learn.
It's funny. I just had a friend of mine. This isn't funny. A friend of mine just died, and this guy was my guy.
Yeah.
Like, he was my guy. Talked to him every day. And so, when you're close with someone, like really close, and you hear someone else reference how close they might be with that person, like deep down in your head, you're like, yeah, but, you don't have what we have. And his name is Jimmy Schaefer. And what I realized at his funeral was Jimmy had this ability to make everybody feel like they were his number one. And that's really what the Quesadas do. They have this incredible humility and just absolute authentic affection and openness that anyone who meets them feels like they've known them forever, because that's the way the Quesadas make you feel. Now, with all of that said, what we have is, is big, but it really is true, man. They're just such an incredible family. And then, the Plasencias shortly thereafter, have become very, very close and supportive for my business. And they've been so willing to teach in a way that I'm not sure other factories necessarily would. Because it's a pain in the ass, man. You got some gringo hanging out for 5 days. It's like, let's just do some business and be done. But and I think maybe there are times when they do that. I don't know that necessarily they are this way with everyone. But I'm so grateful that they have been that way with me, especially the Quesadas for so long, for so many years, that I've learned. I got to start learning when I was 22, going down there and spending time and just being a voyeur, just them being open enough to share the process as they did it, as they were creating blends, as they were doing things, to just participate in tasting and learning and blending and tweaking and, playing with blends on my own. The fact that they would even bother to make them, let alone to then tweak them for me and let me experience what it's like to create something bad and then to figure out how to fix it. That's a level of generosity that really transcends the meaning of the word. But that's that.
Yeah, but you're right. That's one thing I don't hear. We've done interviews with so many people, and we've heard like the story of like, I'm a young kid getting into it. I get invited down to a factory. I'm not a brand owner. I'm not down there to buy anything. And you hear the stories now, people going down to the factory, I get to spend like 5 days down there working. And then most of the time it's, you're going down as a customer learning and they're showing or opening everything up, but we don't hear that anymore. And like you said, it could still happen. I just don't ever hear it of just, hey, I'm new to the cigar world and I'm working here. I just want to come down to the factory. They open up the factory, their homes to you, and they just teach you everything there is. Those, and no pun intended, but that really is those families are really dying, that off that, and it's sad. Hopefully, and I hope there are still plenty of factories and plenty of, companies out there that still do that. Just open up. Hey, I see your passion. Come down. Let us show you what this world, is all about.
I think it was also time and place.
Yeah.
We were coming off of the cigar boom. So 2003 and 4 was a bit of a dip. Maybe there was some available time in those moments to let us let me down there, But I think the other part too is being respectful too. Like I was there not to be in the way, but truly I wanted to learn. I was in retail. I had nothing that I could truly apply to my time there to make them better or for them to make me better. It was purely just authentic, meaningful time together. I don't know. I
think it's a nail on the head there, because especially when you talk about the families that are your friend, where they have that ability to make everyone feel special, make you feel like you're the guy. And to your point of spending time there, I think that's lost as being authentic. When you have someone who's genuine and authentic, they have that ability to make everyone feel like they're special and that they are the man, or that they're that special person just because they're being genuine and authentic. I think that's lost. I think it's when you find folks like that, it's really important to appreciate them and keep them.
I agree. I'll tell you, the other one that I have to mention is Carlito. I met Carlito in Boston in 1999 as a drummer. I had just started working in the cigar shop, and LJ Paredes was hosting a St. Jude's fundraiser for Fuente. And my old boss, David Walker, called Paredes and said, you need to hire my kids' trio to play music at this dinner. And so the Michael Herklots trio showed up at the Boston Harbor Hotel to play. And Carlito was there. I've been smoking cigars for 8 months, so all I knew was Carlito. You know what I mean? Like, it was like it was the most famous cigar guy on the planet, and my little trio was just in the corner playing drums. And so they were at the end of the dinner. They were passing out Opus X Perfection A's, and I remember like I just have to go meet this guy. And so I walked over to him and I shook his hand and I said, my name is Michael Herklots, and I just started working in the cigar business. And he said, oh, Michael, do you enjoy cigars too? It's the first time I had heard the word enjoy versus smoke. And I said, I sure do. And he said, well, here's 3 cigars for you and your trio, these Opus X Perfection A's. which obviously I took all 3 and I didn't share them with the band. But then I saw Carlito, maybe 2002, 2003 at a trade show. And I went up and I introduced myself to him and I said, I don't know if you remember. And he goes, the drummer from Boston. I'm like, yeah. And he was like, yeah, I remember. And, we've stayed very close ever since. He's been a huge, just a huge supporter and sounding board.
Yeah, Jonathan Drew has a similar story meeting Carlito. He was at his the World Trade Center running his little kiosk, and Carlito comes up, hey, we're doing on the top tonight, whatever, we're doing an Opus X like launch party or something. You should come up. So he gave him some Opus X. So everybody always has that Carlito story as well.
I've known John since the late 90s too. I mean, we go. It's interesting. I had this conversation the other day. I'm going down a rabbit hole. Kerr, we said we weren't going to do this, but I'm doing it.
Yeah.
Go crazy. I like to see Kevin lose his mind a little bit.
Yeah, we're good. We're fine. Yeah.
John and Rocky, Lito, I'm so lucky that I started as young as I did in metropolitan areas in stores that were high profile, because I got to have one-on-one FaceTime with principals when they were beginning. So, off the bat, Rocky, John, Lito, use those 3. They're monsters today, right? Monsters.
Yeah.
And in a conversation recently I had about what's boutique, and I said, Rocky, John, and Lito come to mind. And they're like, are you out of your mind? I said, no, because when I met them, they were the ones with a bag going store to store, trying to build their business. So to me, they are the greatest examples of the most successful boutique businesses and boutique brands. In my head, they're still hustling. They've reached a level of success that they are known mainstream level. But, it's so cool to have the history with these guys over the last 24 years now.
You hit it on the head when you said they are still hustling. Those 3 guys are legit hustling every single day. There are guys that get to a certain point and you just don't see them that much on social media. You don't see them, a lot of events. Those 3 guys, man, they are still out there. They're still hustling. They're still doing it.
Because they still love it.
Yeah. That they do. So you started off with the humidor, then you moved up, your way up through. How did you end up with at Davidoff? Because that was where you were at before Nat Sherman, correct?
Yeah, it was always my plan to move to New York after I graduated Berkeley. I moved in 2002. At the time, I was going back and forth to New York, and just socially, and so I would always stop in at Davidoff and see my buddy David Kitchens from Boston, who is now the GM. And he always said, after you graduate, if you move to New York, I'll hire you. I moved to New York. He didn't have a job for me, so I scrambled. But fortunately, within a month, I got hired at Davidoff as a sales associate on the floor. And I was with Davidoff total 9 years in New York.
So, and then how did that progress into the going to Nat Sherman and then working your way up at Nat Sherman?
I became a GM of a store in 2006. 2008, I took over all responsibility for all New York City stores, and I was very happy. I mean, it was a great gig. I was 28, running 3 stores. I mean, that was amazing.
Wow.
And then in 2011, the Shermans were looking for somebody, and they were close with Manolo. So Manolo at one point called and asked if I'd be interested. They were looking for someone just to run the store, the Nat Sherman store. And I said, look, that's not the right move. I'm running Davidoff stores. Running one Nat Sherman store wouldn't really make sense. And so he passed along the message. And then a couple months later, I got a call from a recruiter, and he said, the Shermans want you. And I said, I'm flattered, but it's just not the right opportunity for me. And he called me back, the recruiter, and said, I've been asked to ask you why you don't want to work for the Shermans. And I said, I don't think that's it at all. It's just the opportunity doesn't make sense. And, I like the Shermans. I think they're great people. It's not the right opportunity. And he said, would you be willing to meet them for lunch to see if there is the right opportunity? And I said, of course I'll meet them for lunch. And then we had lunch, and they shared with me, as I've shared in the past, this isn't a secret, they shared with me at the time that they were not happy with the way the store business was. They certainly weren't happy with their cigar business, but they hadn't really spent much time on their cigar business for the last 10 years at that point. And so I basically said that what they were trying to fix was the store, which is not the thing that needed to be fixed first. What needed to be fixed first was the cigar business in its totality, because by fixing the cigar business, it adds a different relevance to the store. And then the store becomes the embodiment and flagship of the cigar business, not just the cigarette brands, which we were famous for. And so I kind of laid out just at lunch, kind of a back of napkin idea of how I thought they could go about it to then be able to hire someone to do the store. And they asked if I thought I could do what I had laid out. And I said, yeah, of course, I do think I could do it, but that doesn't fix the store problem. You still need to hire someone to fix the store. And they said, no, you need to hire someone to fix the store. And I was like, okay, this could work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because I got a lot of flack. In fact, if you Google Michael Herklots leaves Davidoff, it was a big story in Cigar Aficionado's website. And the first comment, all the comments, I think, were like, is he crazy? Like, what is he doing? This doesn't make any sense. And I had a lot of friends say, are you sure you're making the right move? And I said to all of them, it may not make sense right now, but if you see what we're going to do, and I'm confident we're going to do it, it's going to make a lot of sense. I just need the time to do it. And then, so I got to work. We were moving Davidoff at the time. I gave him like 3 months notice. And I started in June in 2011. And it was just full throttle.
Now, did you have any sense getting close to the end that they were, looking to shut down? Were you privy, or were you part of that?
So fast forward, it was owned by the Shermans up until 2017. The Sherman family sold the business to Altria, which is the parent company of Philip Morris. Obviously for the cigarette side of the company. But Altria really loved what we did. They liked the premiumness of the cigar business and the authenticity it lent to the cigarette story and the overarching brand. So they really liked us. But at the end of the day, the entire premium cigar industry in its totality doesn't generate enough profit to justify Altria owning the whole industry, never mind our small side. So they were going to close us, and I asked for the opportunity to try and sell. And they agreed, which they didn't have to do. So in October of 2019, we got to work trying to sell Nat Sherman International, which was the store, the cigar brands, the wholesale business, the inventory, the sales team, the whole shooting match. And I was pretty confident that we'd be able to do that successfully. And we were this close with the final buyers at Altria headquarters in March of 2020, doing the final deal as COVID was making its way from Seattle east. And within a week, New York City was shut down. The buyers pulled out. We spent the next March, April, May, June, July, 5 months trying to repackage this deal and sell it. And ultimately, there was just no way. The longer COVID kept going and New York was still closed, it was just a paralyzing proposition. So ultimately, we had to make the decision to just wrap it up. But, once again, to Altria's credit, every single employee got paid in full throughout the pandemic. Every employee got a generous severance after their last day. So they couldn't have been more generous and gracious. And they gave us the opportunity to try and preserve and save the work because they believed it was deserving of continuing on even though they didn't want to carry it on themselves. They didn't just want to see it die. And so I'm still grateful for that. Now, at the time, the brands were never for sale by themselves. It was always the whole shooting match. The brands were not considered separate.
Yeah.
So when we failed to sell, that was it. I mean, if you go back and look at the press release, I said in the press release, we didn't sell anything. The brands are going to be shelved, and that's it. But as you can imagine, every opportunist, vulture, I have a couple other favorite terms, came out of the woodwork and started picking at our bones, wanting to buy the brands. And with that many offers, Altria was kind of compelled to look at them and consider them.
Yeah,
and so
they're still a company. So yeah.
They reached out to Brendan, the former CFO, and me and said, okay, we have to get the team back together. We're getting way too many offers not to consider them. And, admittedly, it was very emotional for me because I said, I just went on the record saying that the brands aren't for sale. And you gave me your word that the brands weren't for sale. And now the brands are for sale. If the brands are for sale, then I want to buy them. And that was met immediately with skepticism from their part, which didn't sit well with me. So then I called a pretty senior person in their company and I said, look, if you're going to sell the brands, I want the opportunity to put in an offer. And he said, okay, you got 5 days. And I said, shit, let's go. And so I called Brendan and I said, they're going to sell the brands. I had planned to do Ferio Tego as a small little boutique cigar brand. And I said, do you have anything lined up? And he's like, no, we're still working on this business. I'm like, I know, but like after this, here's my idea. What do you think about taking Ferio Tego? We do it together. We buy the brands and we position the brands within the Ferio Tego portfolio, just like we had them in the Nat Sherman International portfolio. And we just bring them back thoughtfully. And we go back to the same manufacturers. Most of them were my blends, and the ones that weren't, I knew what they were. And the manufacturers were the only ones that were left holding the bag because they didn't, they had volume that just vanished.
Yeah.
So, what do you think? And he's like, let's do it. And we put in an offer. And, once again, incredibly generous and gracious. They said we were not the highest bid and we weren't the lowest bid, but we were the right party to carry on the work. And we closed in 45 days.
And then, and speaking of closing, the store, what is the store now? Is
empty. As far as I know, it's empty.
Oh, it's empty. So, okay. I thought something else would,
it was a lease. It was a lease. So
was it?
It was returned to the landlord, and
God, I can't even imagine the rent.
It's a beautiful location. We visited the Nat Sherman, New York, when we were up visiting.
I so wish it was one of the stores that that I want to get to. And Bruce Bush with Berger Cigars, he had asked, "Are you going to be at TPE?" Because he wants to come say hi to you.
It's the same weekend as the Pro Cigar Festival in Dominican Republic. So my partner Brendan will be at TPE, and I'll be in Dominican for Pro Cigar.
Yeah, it was a lot of, I think, Nick Melillo. Like a lot of people had to make that decision of which one to go to. But I want to play a video for you, and then I've got two questions after this video. It's only 56 seconds long, so everybody bear with me here. Let's play this video here.
Final cleanup. This is it. "90 years in business, 9 years of my career, and it is time to close the book." Lights out last time. Locked.
Job well done.
It makes me emotional every time I watch that. You know, I go back and I find that every few months. I just go back and find that video, and then but like I said, ever since I saw that for the first time, my number one question has always been, and I've been waiting to interview you to find out what was in the bag. That bag weighed like 80 pounds. You picked up that bag, and I'm like, what did he take? That, you know,
if you had seen the inventory of alcohol that we started our shutdown with, funny enough, that video was shot by one of my dear friends, Tommy, who just happened to be in New York that day. And I wasn't even scheduled to be in. I had already closed it. And they called me and said, we need you to go in one more time. And so I went in, and I had left a little stuff behind, but I just couldn't take it. I was like over it. So I was like, all right, I'll go back in. A couple bottles left that maybe I'll grab. And my buddy Tommy texted me, and he's like, hey, are you in the city today? I'm like, dude, it's literally my last day. And so he came and met me, and we had lunch, and we had a toast, and then he started filming. But yeah, it was all booze.
Oh, okay. Anything else, like little like desk mementos, you know, that had been in that store forever? It's like, you know what, I gotta take this because it's gonna end up in a landfill.
This art behind me was in the store. I took, you know, my ashtray from my desk, which was mine, but I bought it for that office. This chair actually was my chair from that office. So I took a little, but it's interesting, you know, I feel really fortunate that I got to wind the business down. You know, it really felt like a death. And, you know, there are different ways to deal with losing someone. Sometimes you lose somebody like that, like my buddy Jimmy, you know, and it's just one day everything's there and the next day it's just gone. The other is sometimes more unfortunate and harder to deal with when it just goes on, and you know it's coming, but it's a long process. But that also gives you time to kind of prepare and be at peace with the outcome that is inevitable. Mm-hmm. And so that's how it was. The decision was final. We knew what was coming, and so it was my job to make that process as smooth as possible, but also as dignified as possible. But by the end, I was just so ready for it to be over that there wasn't much I wanted to hold on to. You know, I certainly held on to some blends and some inventory that I had bought that I wanted to remember over time. But I was very much at peace with the fact that was the last time I was putting my key in the door.
And
wow,
at least you saw I don't want to say you went down with the ship, you know, because that's a bad analogy, but you know, but it's at least you didn't leave to go on to do something else, and someone else had to close that. At least, you know, at least you got to see that through.
And we got to do it. We got to do it our way. I mean, we went out, we closed the business the way we built the business, with dignity, with our heads held high, proud of the work we did. I mean, every day we would go in the humidor and there'd be less and less product. And every day the staff would be in there redressing the humidor to make sure it looked great. Like it was empty, but it was perfect and pristine. And we made sure that we treated every customer the same on the way out as we did when we built the business.
Now on the customers, we're getting closer to the end because obviously people knew that it was closing down. Did you have a lot of people coming in? Maybe a lot of people that hadn't been in a while. That's the
only hard part. It was the middle of the pandemic and New York was closed.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. Yeah.
What was great, the flip side of that was the only people who were in the city were essential workers.
Yeah.
And so every day in front of our store were cops and firemen and EMS and nurses and sanitation and all these just real New Yorkers who had grown up with Nat Sherman, and they were the ones that got the deals. I mean, we had Paddy Wagon pull up, and one of my NYPD buddies was FaceTiming the precinct, and they got like $5,000 worth of, well, $20,000 worth of stuff. Then a dump truck pulled up, and we loaded up the dump truck with stuff for the sanitation house. A fire truck came up, and we loaded up for the firehouse. It was so great to be able to give those people the break. It was awesome.
That's kind of magical, right? I mean,
yeah.
It just so happens that when you are winding down and closing out the business, those who are closing it down and winding down with you are the locals. And like you said, those essential workers, the New Yorkers, and the folks that really probably appreciated it.
Same on the wholesale side, too. Don't forget, we had a warehouse full of inventory that we had to sell through. Most companies would have called 2 or 3 really big customers.
Yeah.
And loaded up a truck and sent it to them. We kept our sales staff, our wholesale team. We kept the field sales team in place, and they called their brick and mortar stores and offered. We were selling 2, 3, 5, 8 boxes at a time, like we always had, at a dignified liquidation price, because they've been closed too. I mean, all those retailers were hurting, doing curbside pickup. And so we got to deliver them the brands that they had helped us build, with incredible margins that they could then keep those brands on the shelf, continue to deliver them to their consumers, and hopefully recuperate some of the margin that they lost by being shut down. Wow. It was really, out of a really sad thing, a lot of great things came out of it. Not the least of which is Ferio Tego.
That's it. Well, you said it took 45 days to close that deal. What was the time frame of you locking that door for the last time to the end of that 45 days? Was it a couple of months, 6 months? Was it?
I think that was a Friday. Or maybe it was earlier in the week. The very last day was like November 13th or something, was a Friday, and I was in the New Jersey office closing that up with Brendan, and we signed that day.
Oh, okay.
No.
Wow. I remember.
Don't forget, we made the decision to close in July. August, September is when the process started to sell the brands.
Yeah.
So we were probably approved as the buyer end of September, October, something like that, and then we closed mid-November.
Now did that did you get the inventory as well as the exit? Okay, so
because what was clear is, in order for this to work, this Ferio Tego is not a Nat Sherman story. Yeah. Ferio Tego is a Ferio Tego story, and to make this absolutely crystal clear, nothing that we sold could ever say Nat Sherman on it. And all of the old inventory had Nat Sherman International somewhere on it.
Yeah.
And I felt very strongly, as did they, that we wanted no blurred line. We were clear that our intention was to take Timeless and Metropolitan and Epoca and Ancora and build it as Ferio Tego. And so there was no opportunity for us to inherit or acquire any of that inventory that would be honestly confusing to figure out which one is which. So it was absolute clean slate.
All right. And I remember, doing the show when all that was going on, and I would end almost every single show with all of our guests. Where does Michael Herklots go? Where does Michael Herklots go? Almost every single show. And everybody says wherever he wants. I think everybody was betting on back at Davidoff. I think that's what, everybody was, was betting on. But did you have some, did they come out of the woodwork? Like everybody, like when you announced that, like you were getting, some serious offers?
I got no offers.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I got no offers. I had a lot of, my phone rang endlessly with people offering support and expressing a desire to help, but no offers.
Wow, that's surprising. I wonder why that is.
Well,
are you the type of person it's hard to fit into another company, like your role?
I think if you look at what I did for 9 years, it is likely difficult for a company to try and see where I would have fit in, because I was, for all intents and purposes, I was a face of that brand. I didn't own the brand, but I was certainly associated in front of that brand. And the work I did was the factory relationships, the blend maintenance, the blend creation, all of the marketing and stuff laddered into me, the sales laddered into me, retail laddered into me. And if you look at any company that theoretically would have a spot for me, that work is already being done, by one person or by many people. So, I recognize that I was probably a very difficult hire.
Okay. I mean, that definitely makes sense. So you closed the deal on the buying the brands. What was next? What was your next step? Was it?
Well, we were already by then in the works with Ferio Tego, Elegante, and Generoso. We had the travel humidors in production. We had the cigars in production. So that work was already going on.
Oh, okay.
Then our next steps were just creating the infrastructure of the business. So that was November, December. The factories were closed for the holidays, and that was just Brendan and I, trying to develop a website, trying to develop some back-end infrastructure, some accounting, and put together some business plans and models, and then start figuring out, it seemed like a really good idea to buy the brands. That made a lot of sense. But what didn't make sense was how the hell Michael and Brendan are going to sell these brands and bring them back to market when we have no infrastructure. We're just two guys. So to prop up these enterprise level brands with no distribution structure in place was a little bit daunting, or stupid. It's actually stupid. So we spent a lot of time then exploring fulfillment solutions on how we would ultimately go to market. So in January, when the factories opened, we discussed with them our forecasting and what we thought we would need for our first shipments. But then we also explained that we didn't have any money left to give them. And so would they be willing to front us the first order? And every factory, Quesada, Plasencia, Davidoff, and Cigar Rings, all four of them said without a pause, no problem. We'll make the cigars. You figure out how to sell them. By the time you have a plan, the cigars are going to be ready. And we took delivery in October during a boom of production, and when there were restrictions in place in every country, so everyone was at max capacity. There was no room of everyone like, oh, thank God Ferio Tego is here to save the day. I mean, everyone was making more cigars than they've ever made in their lives,
and paying for them.
And paying for them. And every one of our partners said, yeah.
Because it comes full circle. You had so August 18th, 2010, you wrote in was it Hope magazine out of the Humidor blog. Today's cigar marketplace is flooded with boutique brands, many nothing more than a gringo with enough backing to produce a limited number of cigars and release them through select retailers, often only to have the bottom fall out and end up being blown out on pennies to the dollar on a discount website. So that really did, like I said, you wrote that in 2010. It's 10 years later, and that that could have been you. You could have been that gringo.
I mean, that's the phase I'm in right now.
Yeah.
So the question is that my future? Does Ferio Tego become the story of two gringos that went all in just to have the bottom fall out? I can tell you that is not going to happen.
Is it? you've been in the business so long, but now that you own everything, was it harder than you had anticipated, or was it
yes.
okay?
Yes, in every way.
Okay.
I am so grateful that I had a 20-year paid internship in the industry. But when you take a risk as a thoughtful employee, and you take a calculated risk and you fail, hopefully the company is strong enough that they can eat the fail, they can learn from it, and then you move on. We really can't afford a failure. So what's at stake is so much greater. And I think there were different expectations of Ferio Tego after we announced the company that were higher than new brands generally have to live up to.
Oh yeah.
Because I've been around for so long. So there was so much pressure, probably self-imposed more than anything, but just, I had to exceed the expectations that were kind of floating out there. And because there were so many moving parts, we had Ferio Tego plus 9 additional blends with 42 facings that had already been in market that we had to make sure we restored correctly, right? I mean, the first thing anyone wants to do is to be able to say, "Oh, this is totally different. You ruined it." So that's a lot of pressure to fix and basically remaster 9 blends to make them the best they've ever been and bring them back to market and then get them into market. So we needed a distribution plan. Fortunately, we found a great partner in Davidoff USA, who we'd already been working with at Nat Sherman, manufacturing one of our blends, that they turned out to be the best option for us. And so then bolting into their organization also increased the bar to which we would be measured, because not only was there the pre-existing now Ferio Tego expectations, there's also the bias that comes with the endorsement of a Davidoff inclusion, so there was just up to and until we finally started shipping, it was just mind-bogglingly terrifying.
Yeah,
and once the first Ferio Tegos went out, I think within a day I started seeing pictures being posted of people saying they're here and people smoking them and taking pictures. And then it was like, and don't forget, we couldn't even get to the factory because there were travel restrictions.
Mm-hmm.
So we did all of it via Zooms and FedEx or UPS, sending samples back and forth. I mean, it's insane, totally insane. But the only reason it worked is because everybody who was involved believed in Ferio Tego as much as we do. All the manufacturers, Davidoff in distribution, and frankly, the retail partners who stepped up immediately and supported with an order. That's
huge.
I'm constantly trying to find new ways to accurately express my gratitude. And I don't think I've been able to do it successfully because I just can't express the level of gratitude I have for the amount of support we've received. And today, this is 15 months since we sent our first shipment out the door. We have shipped to over 1,000 stores, which in 15 months, that's a crazy story.
It's insane. Was it important to you to release Ferio Tego cigars before you released,
Absolutely,
the brands with the new banding?
It had to be. Like I said, this is not a Nat Sherman story. This is a Ferio Tego story, and people needed to see and hear and experience Ferio Tego and what the proposition was for this brand moving forward. This is a completely new story with new players and creating a new legacy. And Timeless and Metropolitan are Ferio Tego. That's it. If you look in the liner notes or the footnotes of our story, we're proud of the history of those brands. But those brands today belong to Ferio Tego, and they're ours. We brought them back. We didn't go back in the aging room and take existing inventory that was intended for something else. Every single cigar that has ever been sold as Ferio Tego was created by and for Ferio Tego, even if they were brands that someone had purchased historically or in the past. These are Ferio Tego. These are not any other brand.
You know, and you're probably the first brand, you know, so to back up, so you've seen it in the retail space. We've seen it too. You know, like recently, Illusione, you know, they're switching their bands. You know, some people are getting the new bands. Instantly, they say the cigar, they're just not as good. And it's just a band. It's just a band. You know, you're the first company that I've ever heard, you know, you bring back, you know, and everybody's like, these are better. These are better. I have not heard one person say, you know, these just aren't the same. They're just not as good.
I'll be honest. Some people have said it. What I hear most, though, is something like, these are the best they've ever been. And that's what we're going for. You know, when you're recreating art, I used the example the other day in a shop. I played on an album, and there's one song on this one album that I hear a mistake I made. If we ever went to re-record that album, I wouldn't make sure to repeat the mistake so that it's exactly the same as it was in the first recording. The song's exactly the same, but we're going to make it sound the best it's ever sounded. And so where there were opportunities to really tweak and finesse and perfect something, that's what an artist does. You know, we can't help it but try and make it our best the next time. Mm. But the other thing, so there were some blends that I don't mind saying it. Timeless Supreme, for example, is a touch hardier than it was initially. Initially, there really was no Ligero in that blend. But at the time that we released it, that was deliberate. And then we were forced to preserve and maintain it. But then we introduced other blends along the way that were in similar style, that now the Nicaraguan Puro that lives within Timeless is better served being a touch fuller and richer and heavier. And so we did make a slight adjustment to that. But like in the case of Metropolitans, people have been buying the Metropolitan Connecticut and Maduro and Host since 1995. That was one that was really important that we get right. But at the same time, I think of it like reissuing an album, or said better, remastering an album. We're taking the same session, but when you take it from the session that went on vinyl and you take that same master and you make it digital for iTunes, the engineers are deliberately remastering levels so that when you listen to the same song from the same recording, you're hearing it the way we are supposed to hear it, through headphones like this. You know, there's things that you can hear this way that you couldn't hear on vinyl in a mono stereo. And so the idea of remastering these to make the song sound the best, to make these blends taste the best, so that when you light up a Metropolitan Connecticut, it tastes exactly like you remember, just better, relevant, current. You know, it's an awesome opportunity to be able to do that. I sure as hell was not going to miss that opportunity and spend the next 10 or 20 years preserving a mistake or something I could have done better 10 years ago.
That's probably the best analogy I've ever
Yeah.
heard. Like I said, that
Agreed.
really is, and it makes sense. Like I said, it's not making a change because you're preserving a blend. What's that, Jess?
There's a good question.
Okay, if you could change one thing since you started your own company, Celestino, what would that be? So were there any? You look back, it's been 14 months or so. Was there something you're like, I wish we'd have done this at the beginning?
We moved very fast. When we launched, we shipped Ferio Tego, Elegancia, and Generoso immediately with Timeless Sterling and Timeless Prestige. And then 30 days later, Panamericana and Supreme. That's a lot. That's a lot to bite off. For retailers, that's a lot to bite off. And perhaps doing it slower and spending more time focused talking about each thing more might have been a more thoughtful way to do it. But I felt a lot of pressure to get those brands back on shelves because they had been on shelves, and then a lot of retailers bought a lot of inventory. So there really had not been a significant dark period for the Timeless brands in stores. And I thought it would behoove all of us to just restore those back and get them back on shelves quickly so consumers don't fall in love with something else.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Makes
I don't
sense.
think it was the wrong decision. But, if we had more time, maybe I would have stretched that out a little bit more. But otherwise, we've made very quick but very thoughtful decisions in every step along the way. And I'm really proud of all the decisions we've made. So I don't think we've made a mistake yet.
Now, how many brands that you purchased that still haven't come back out yet, that haven't been released?
I mean, well, we own the Epoca brand.
Yeah.
That's not one that we intend to release anytime soon. There were some formats in Timeless and Metropolitan that we didn't release that we're going to start looking at potentially adding back in.
Okay, that was my next question on the Vitolas, if there was ones that you hadn't released yet.
So there are some that I think we'll add back over time, but once again, we're a 15-month in-market brand with 42 core front marks, not including limited editions. I think everyone deserves a breath. And the other thing I think is important is that we have to make sure that retailers feel the support. They've done their piece. They've brought it in. We need to make sure that those retailers feel like the product is like they're winning with it. That it was a sound investment to get behind. And so that's why I've been on tour for the last 12 months, getting into market and saying thank you and shaking hands in the stores that are doing well, helping to push and tell the stories in the stores that need that extra help. And then for the skeptics that maybe aren't convinced that Ferio Tego is the right brand for them yet, to help share a little more of our story and explain why we're a winning proposition.
And obviously there'll be more Ferio Tego cigars, as you go along as well, I'm assuming.
Yeah, sure.
So what was when you came home one day and you had to tell your wife, I'm thinking, I want to buy the brands. What was that dinner conversation like?
I certainly joked that it was a much more severe conversation. It was, I've got the best wife in the world. I think Brendan would say the same about his. And, both our wives are very successful. They both work. They both support us. And, my wife is my biggest cheerleader. And she was always convinced whatever I'm going to do is going to work. So obviously this was a slightly more intense family conversation because of the financial aspect of it. But we talked through the plan, and she was like, "Okay, go. It's gonna work. Go for it. It's gonna work."
Now, the one thing that you probably couldn't have planned was your time away. Like I said, you've been on a tour. You've been, how long are you away from home at times?
Going into this, I was gone a lot at Nat Sherman.
Oh, were you?
I was
okay.
Gone a lot in market. Plus, Altria was headquartered in Richmond. We did fulfillment out of North Carolina, and so I was on the road a lot, and I was in the factories all the time. So I said to myself, I did not want to go back to that all-in road life, especially coming out of COVID, where I really got to spend a lot of time with my wife and kids, and it was great. So I really do try and find a balance, but I own the business. Brendan and I are partners. We own the business. And if there is a business need, then I have to do it. And now is the time to do it. So, like right now, the kids are in school 5 days a week. They have activities. So, my time with them is limited during the week anyway. If I can be out on the road and be hitting shops and doing this gratitude tour and preaching the gospel of Ferio Tego, but then getting home by Thursday or Friday and spending the weekend with my family, that's how I've been trying to do it. And then take a week off here and there. I try and get the calendar aligned, so I'm not gone on a school vacation or whatever. But it's a work in progress, man. I'm not to say that somehow I have mastered the balancing act of homework balance would be an absolute lie.
Now, what about Brendan? I mean, are you guys just, you're each doing everything? Do you guys have separate roles? Is he, because we don't see him very often at all. So is he pretty much back end, not traveling as much, or what are your,
he was the CFO of Nat Sherman.
Yeah.
And so all of the things he's an expert in, I know nothing about. And all of the things I'm an expert in, he doesn't have expertise. So we really have done a good job of kind of carving out who's the lead on this body of work and who's the lead on that body of work. So if we're talking about, going on the road and doing events, consumer facing, obviously that's squarely in my lane. But if it's local events, Brendan's always here. If it's something in New Jersey or in the city or Pennsylvania, we jump in the car and we go because he loves doing it. But we're also a startup business. When you add 2 people, that's 2 plane tickets, 2 meals, 2 hotels. It just adds up. So eventually I know he wants to do more of that. When it's industry stuff, like he'll be at TPE, he'll be at PCA, he'll be at TAA. He was at Rocky Mountain Cigar Festival. He's out. He was at Cigar Association of America annual meeting, which we're members of. So, when it's business and industry, he's there. He spends time with the factory and with Davidoff from the back end perspective, whereas I'm spending it more on the blending and the creative and those types of things. He does a lot more of the logistics and the forecasting and procurement. So it's a really perfect balance.
So does he ever, when he's at an event and you're not there, do people come up and like, oh, Ferio Tego, where's Michael? He's not here, and you get the because Espinoza. I always see the first time I was at their booth, and I'm like, oh my god, where's Jack? And everybody's like, like we're here too. No, where's Jack? Where's Jack? Where's Jack at? So.
He's never told the story that way.
Okay. So yeah, I could see that though. People want Ferio Tego. They want to see you. They want to meet you. One question about your wife. How often does going back? How often does she you wrangle her into taking some of them beautiful photos? I can't all be tripod. I can't all be tripod. Some of them
a lot of tripod, bro.
Is it? Okay.
It's a lot of tripod. Every once in a while she'll shoot one. Now my kids are getting older. They can do a little too. But mostly it's either tripod or it's if I'm at an event or I'm somewhere and there's a photographer, I'll try and snag them and be like, can we grab some extras here? Daddy needs some content and can't pay for it.
So who's got the bigger wardrobe, you or your wife?
I think it's a pretty fair split. It's a pretty fair split. I probably have more garments hanging.
Yes. Someone had just commented, Michael Herklots, the best dressed man in the cigar business.
That's
so
very nice.
Do you have was there ever a style that you always modeled after? You do have a very specific style. Is that just like a New York style, or is there something when you were younger growing up? I mean, getting into the cigar industry, I know Rocky's always like dressed to the nines as well. Did you see in these,
It's a bit of a mixed bag. I mean, like if you look at early pictures of me at Davidoff, it was crazy. I mean, I had stripes and polka dots and paisleys and every color on them. I didn't own a solid garment, not one. I didn't have it. It was just pattern explosion. And then I toned it down when I got to Nat Sherman. So some of it is a product of environment. Starting in 2002, I wore a suit every day because that's what we wore at Davidoff. So I was just suited and booted, and that just became me. But then even before that, there is something a bit polished about the cigar world when you're consumer facing. And I worked in Boston before that in an office building, so there were people who were dressed, and so I would wear a jacket and a collared shirt and a nice pair of pants. But I was also a jazz drummer, so I would typically leave my apartment to go to school, to then go to work, to then go to a gig. So I would basically leave my day in the morning dressed for a gig at night. And so I was sort of inevitably always dressed up. But even if you go back to like high school and middle school, like there would be days where I would just wear a blazer and a tie, like on Thursday. I had my preppy outfit and I would wear it like twice a month. But then like I always had costumes. I had like this other like all denim outfit, and then I had this like, I don't know, I always had this sense of dressing in character. But I'm a musician and I was in theater and I did all, there's something, maybe it's just that crazy artist mentality, and I didn't know what it was back then, and neither did anyone else for that matter.
Thursday blazer, Kev, get that down.
Thursday blazer, I'm gonna write that down.
Blazer.
Right, and it wasn't just a cool picture day.
Yeah. So one thing I forgot to mention when you had bought the and I remember reading this all the brands from the Nat Sherman line, you also bought the pipe side of the business as well, correct?
Well, we bought the rights to everything non-cigarette. So the ability to re-commercialize the pipe tobaccos, our cigarillos, our accessories. We had a brand called Ancora, which we also brought back with our ashtrays, all of it. But, we can only do so much. And really getting into that pipe tobacco thing, that is an area that I participated in, but I certainly don't have great expertise, nor was it a huge piece of our business. So that was less of a priority to try and get back into market.
Okay, so and that's one thing I didn't know, because that's I didn't know if it was pipe tobacco or pipes, so I wasn't quite sure.
We had not made branded pipes or accessories for decades, but we did have pipe tobacco.
Oh, okay, that I wasn't sure about. So it's a I don't want to say a burgeoning field, but it seems like over the last couple of years, the pipe tobacco side, at least on the cigar side, we're seeing more pipe tobacco. We're hearing that, that talk a lot more than we ever have been. So
it's
that's
something I appreciate, but it's not something I love.
Yeah, same here.
And as I thrive in the spaces where I'm authentic. And the reality is pipe tobacco today is not a space that I'm truly authentic. And so I don't think that's a place really for me to spend a lot of time at the moment.
But Kevin, are you referring to more of the utilization of pipe tobacco in cigars?
Yeah, I mean, that, and just like you hear a lot more cigar guys just talking about pipes, like smoking pipes.
There is a lot more crossover.
Yeah, we're starting to see that in more of the groups. Someone will post, smoking a pipe. It's like, hey, does anybody else in this cigar group smoke pipes? So we're starting to see, because I know they have huge pipe groups as well. But yeah, I've just been seeing a lot more of the influx of the pipe guys in the cigar groups. Just asking a lot of questions. And Ferio Tego accessories and swag on the horizon.
Yes, we have been just saddled with the worst luck, because what I'm not willing to do is just take a shitty hat and a t-shirt and put our logo on it.
Yes,
and put it out the door. So we're trying to create thoughtful goods that people would really love to wear or love to use, and we have not had great luck with vendors or product quality. It looks like we're getting closer on some of the more promotional accessory type stuff, some lighters and some cutters, just to get that kind of swag in. So that's in the works right now. But I still, of course, I want a nice hat. I want a nice shirt. I want a vest. I want to rep the brand too. But we just have not found goods that are worth it. And frankly, we don't have the cash flow to invest in apparel.
Yeah, because everybody wants it free. Nobody wants to buy apparel. Hey, I just bought a $300 box of cigars. You should throw in a hat or a t-shirt. And it's like, but I commend you on that, because we get apparel, companies will send it to us, hats, t-shirts. And I mean, these are like huge legacy companies. Like, hey, thanks for, whatever. And then they'll send a hat. And I'm like, because we do our own apparel in house, like hats and shirts. And I'm like, this is the best you got? Like, I know you got a team of people. And I'm like, this is like a $2 hat. And you are like literally a multi-million-dollar brand. It's like, why would you?
That goes back to like where we started. And you said, did Ferio Tego Cigars have to come first? The answer is yes, because that set the standard for what Ferio Tego is. Ferio Tego is a high-end, not inexpensive, handmade premium cigar that comes packaged in a handmade travel humidor, and is a very thoughtful blend with beautiful bands that tell a story. That's all very deliberate, and it commands a price. Mm-hmm. So I can't reward you with a flimsy t-shirt, and a crap hat.
You're gonna see Michael at events with one of them like t-shirt poppers, like
the t-shirt guns. Yeah, that's we will. I can guarantee we will not see that at the great.
I need a blazer popper. That's what I need.
Yeah. An ascot popper. Michael Herklots, hear me out. Smoking jackets. Yes. Yes. That's what we all.
I'm smoking in any jacket.
Yeah, exactly. All my jackets are smoking jackets.
That's it. So we're gonna talk a little bit about the Great Smoke. Someone had asked what you were going to be wearing to the Great Smoke 2023. That's coming up. So we've got is it going to be this outfit? They got this one, or is that
Look at Paul.
Yeah, I know.
How do you compete?
Yeah, how do you
pop that back up? Pop that back up.
Did you commission that picture?
Everything is wrong here. First of all, Kim is like 6 feet tall.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
So how I ended up somehow taller than her is absolutely absurd. Paul, he doesn't wear underwear, so that doesn't make sense. Abe sent me that graphic, and he sent me a picture of just the suit, and I said, "What the hell is that?" He said, "That's your suit for the Great Smoke," and I said, "No, it's not. That's not it."
You're like,
I went to Mardi Gras. Only clowns and people in parades dressed like that, not commentators on the side. So I think I'm just going to wear a jacket and a shirt, and I'm going to look nice, and maybe some beads,
So this will be your third Great Smoke, correct?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. Are you still having as much fun, and is it getting easier than that first one?
Well, the first one, I mean, how do you even?
Yeah.
It was insane. It was just insane. I was not prepared for what that actually was going to be, but I think it was really a production that this industry has never seen. That level of professionalism in delivering a consumer experience, given the challenges that we were faced in a global pandemic. So I'm super proud to have been a part of the first one. But then we set the bar very high for ourselves.
That you did, yes.
A few people said they were disappointed with the second one, but you have to understand that the second one was a full production of the event as it has historically been.
Yeah.
2,500 people in a room executing an in-person event. And then on top of that, Abe invested in that TV production to come and still create some virtual experience. Right. So that really is a plus as Abe's commitment to keeping that audience and still delivering that experience. And so I felt like last year was great. This year, I didn't compare last year to the year before because they're just completely different.
Yeah.
I think I will probably find myself comparing this year to last year.
I think they were both incredible. I mean, because you're right, they were so extremely different, but it was revolutionary, like what Abe, created, and you and Kim. I mean, just fantastic. And like, you really, even though we've been able to experience it live, like, during COVID, we went to Smoke In. We weren't able to, do the Great Smoke, but we felt like we were a part of it. It was so cool.
Wait, you watched the virtual at Smoke In?
Yeah, we came over for like a half an hour to do some photos where you guys were at, and then we hung out at Smoke In. We watched it on the big screens with everybody else that was there, and we had
Evan had
Evan had a little event over there, and then and speaking of Evan, like I said, so you actually have a lot to live up to. I mean, you're hosting the Red Meat Lovers Club dinner,
now there's a civilized picture.
Yes, that a lot more civilized. So, but you have, I mean, that's an event that, I mean, people talk about Red Meat Lovers Club events 6 months prior, and they talk about Red Meat Lovers Club events for a year afterwards. Now you did one Red Meat Lovers Club event already. I think it was a small one because we were in New Jersey doing the dinner on the USS New Jersey, and I think the night before you did one at a steakhouse in New York, correct?
We did it in a very famous restaurant in New Jersey. Called Saddle River Inn. Yeah, it was great. I've known Evan since the first week I moved to New York City. I've known
really?
Evan since 2002. Yeah.
Okay.
So it was great to kind of get the band back together and support him. And we've done a couple other things. But this is going to be bonkers. We did a special cigar for the Great Smoke, and that we'll be featuring at that dinner, which is this guy right here.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and then I was just going to ask because there's a 3-pack of cigars, correct?
Yeah.
So
ridiculous 3-pack.
Oh yeah, and then for everybody that's so scrolling at the bottom of your screen now, thegreatsmoke.com, there are still tickets to the Great Smoke. You can come down and watch and attend the event live. They still have the virtual side where you can watch virtually and get your package. You don't have to buy the package either, like I said, the Great Smoke will be broadcast live, so you could just hang out at your garage, or your man cave, invite some buddies over and just watch the event.
Or gals.
And there are still
Thank you,
there are still tickets available for the Red Meat Lovers Club. I don't think there's very many left, so if you're in the area, you can.
So
still
everyone
comment.
is getting all 3 limited editions: Ferio Tego 2022 Elegancia, Ferio Tego 2022 Generoso, and the TGS 2023.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Stupid.
It's going to be stupid, and we're never, because we're always hanging out at the Boynton Beach location, doing the event there. Last couple of years it's been Rocky Patel. This year it's Dunbarton. So we've never made it over to the Red Meat Lovers Club event at the Great Smoke. We're going to miss it again this year, hanging out at Boynton Beach. But
I think you should divide and conquer.
We probably should. Just that table, that long table that seats. It's one table that seats a couple hundred people. That is just insane.
I think you should divide and conquer. And Kevin, I think you should stay with Steve.
Yeah, and Jessica. But the problem is Steve likes Jessica more than me. So
everybody does.
Everybody does. People. You talk about earlier about family. People like your family with him too, but I know him better. People will be like, "Oh, I'm friends with Steve," and I'm like, "Yeah, are you? Has he ever called you to yell at you about something?" He has me. So yeah. So. I got that going for me. But yeah, it's going to be a fantastic event.
Yeah,
it's going to be great.
It's just that is my favorite event. It has always been when we started going to the Great Smoke as vendors.
Yeah.
So, and I even loved it then, even working and sweating our butts off in the older part, because that was in the original part when he did.
Yeah.
Now this new space is fancy.
Abe is another one of those people, like the Casadas, like my man Jimmy, where he has this incredible ability to create a community of people that just work together, and everyone, it really feels like family. I mean, the fact that this is considered a family reunion now, I think is so right on point. And through the Socialite Facebook group, which I think kind of started just as COVID started, if I recall.
Yeah.
The friendships and relationships that have developed through that now kind of coalesce during the Great Smoke is miraculous.
It's absolutely crazy, just to see where the event has come over the last couple of years, that group has come over the last couple of years. What's your give us your best sales pitch for people that haven't watched a virtual Great Smoke or attended a live Great Smoke? For people, why should they tune in and watch? What can they expect this year? Because we haven't been given a lot of details of what to expect this year. So why should people tune in?
Not a lot of people go to Times Square for New Year's Eve. Right. But a lot of people watch, and it's still a great show. You don't miss the main events that are happening on the stage, but rather than just standing in the middle of Times Square holding your pee for 6 hours, there's a whole show that you can watch with interviews, with other guest appearances, with all these other things happening. And that's the virtual side. So when the main event on the stage isn't happening, whether it's a show, a performance, or whether it's a big interview with a major manufacturer, or like Guy Fieri last year, then on the virtual side, there's constant action. Sometimes it's additional interviews with other manufacturers. Sometimes it's Kim and Paul just in the crowd, talking with people, learning about people's stories. It is a highly engaging, fun look at an event. And trust me, everyone can imagine a cigar event in their head that they've been to, even the biggest ones. But there is no consumer event that has the energy and excitement and camaraderie that the Great Smoke has. There just isn't one. And I think it really comes across now in that virtual. And at the very least, I think it will give folks a real appreciation of the great work Abe has done.
Mm-hmm.
But I actually think you will get a better appreciation of the individual stories of each vendor and manufacturer, and learn a little bit more about the brands and the histories. And you'll see some of your favorite people who you see on Facebook live, being interviewed or just hanging out and having a good time. So, I mean, it's not always fun just to watch other people having a great time, but, I would encourage you to get a crew together, have it on, smoke cigars and party yourselves, and just have that going in the background. It's a great excuse even just to socialize within your own cigar smoking community.
There have been several people that have reached out to me over the last few weeks. We've been helping Abe promote the event. Say, "Oh, I'm envious. You get to go down there and see the event." And I've said several times, I'm envious of you. You get to stay at home and you get to watch everything. I miss 50% of the great smoke. When you're there, you miss a lot of what's going on. And we end up, we'll see in the socialite group last year, someone like, "Oh, hey, did you see this?" And I'm like, "Oh no, I missed that. I have to go back and watch it, look for that."
But that's what's so great too. I mean, I would tell anyone that's there live, you have to go watch the virtual after.
Yeah.
You just have to. Because it's a whole different show. There's so much stuff that's happening on the virtual, that you're missing if you're on the other side of the room during the physical event, and you don't see those interviews, you don't see the extra stories, and I think those are important.
They definitely are.
The virtual's fun. I did the virtual last 2 years with Daryl.
Yeah, it's always
a blast.
Everybody always has these great parties that they post pictures of, and anybody you're looking really looking forward. I mean, you always probably look forward to interviewing everybody, but is there someone this year like you're interviewing? You're like, yes, finally.
I haven't seen my interview list yet.
You haven't?
I don't know who I'm interviewing.
Oh my God, that's gonna be awesome.
But it's always fun, it's funny. Eric Espinoza, after our interview with him and Guy, he made some comment that Guy was he was impressed with the interview, and he made a comment to Eric about how well it went, and Eric said, "Well, he probably prepared and had all his questions ready or whatever." And I was like, "Eric, I didn't have anything. We just sat up there and talked for 15 minutes. But, when you can get people to speak about their experiences in that very authentic way, and you can ask them things that are not the typical questions, to me, that's a really exciting thing to do as an interviewer, to try and, drill into learn some new thing that maybe you didn't know about this person. And I think I did that with almost everyone last year. I mean, it's what stands out to me specifically is my conversation with Guy and also my conversation with Steve.
Yeah.
I thought those interviews were awesome. And the year before, in the big one, I had a really great interview with Carlito.
Yes, that was fantastic.
And Steve also, but also Nick and Rocky.
Yeah,
we really kind of drilled into some stuff that I don't think they were expecting us to talk about. I mean, Carlito blew up in tears during ours. But that's a real fun bonus that I get to do.
Steve's a hard guy to interview. He is and he isn't. He's one. You could just start off with with one question. How you doing today, Steve? And then you could just walk away for 90 minutes.
That's actually, one of the challenges, obviously, not unlike this show, which I've failed to do, stay on topic. Part of what you have to do is pull, ring people back in, and, you only have a limited amount of time. But I'm excited to interview whoever I get.
Oh, that's awesome. I can't wait, because I haven't seen the list yet either. Abe doesn't share. He's not one to put a lot of info out. He likes people to be surprised, even us, which is good. I like being surprised too. I like being there and be like, "Oh my God, you got so-and-so to do an interview." That's awesome.
Work so hard, why would you want to blow like everything?
Yeah.
And ruin, like, it's, they put a lot of work into all of it.
Yeah, kind of like the Jerry Lewis telethon. It's just like, oh, we got so and so, and it's it's fantastic.
The first one definitely felt like Jerry Lewis.
Yeah.
It was a breeze last time. We were done in 4 hours. I was like, this is great.
I kept wondering during the first one, when I thought someone was going to be like, and call now. We have operators standing by to take your donations, and that's just the way it felt. And it was
the desk Abe was sitting at, and everything.
And Abe with his jacket with the big shoulders, and like he just went down to Walmart that morning, and like, just give me a jacket.
By the way, I don't know if you ever saw it. I think it's on my Instagram. At the end of that show, there's a picture of me in Abe's jacket.
Oh no!
It's unbelievable.
I think.
Oh my God!
It's like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. He is definitely not a small man. So like I said, everybody, scrolling at the bottom of your screen, thegreatsmoke.com. Live tickets available, virtual tickets available. The Red Meat Lovers Club VIP dinner tickets are still available for that.
And our cigar will be available first at the dinner, so that's your first chance to buy, and then it'll be available the next day, whatever's left.
Oh, will it? Okay, so that's awesome. So we'll be able to pick those up as well. So you're will those be available at Boynton Beach, or are you having a booth at the Great Smoke itself?
I have absolutely no idea. I don't have a booth.
Okay,
I'll be in the studio. So
okay, so
no idea. But if you want them,
so those tickets will be available somewhere the next day, whatever cigars are left. So, all right, man. I can't believe it's been 2 hours.
Wow.
It has been a wild ride. Kerr, any final thoughts, questions?
Thanks. This was fantastic. You did a great job of staying on track, Michael. You did.
Yeah, that's our show. We just kind of go all over the place.
I just want to say, CBGB's was my haunt growing up. I basically lived at that place, going to punk shows, and also my maiden name is Schaefer.
Really?
Yeah. Yep.
Small world.
Yeah.
CB's was a special place. Hey, I really want to say thank you guys for the opportunity to be on. I love the work you do. And the last thing I've been ending with, and I'd like to end here with too, is just I think a lot of times consumers don't quite recognize the influence they have in building a brand. Your authentic endorsement when you take a photo of something and post it, or when you tell a friend, or when you buy one and share it with somebody, you are endorsing that product. And especially when you take a photo, you're giving permission for other people to brag about that brand. And today we live in this time when people only post what they think is going to be met with the likes and the comments. And for a brand like mine, every one of those posts and photos is an endorsement, and it's giving confidence and reassurance, not just to consumers, but to retailers, for them to say, wow, people are buying this, people are smoking it, people are liking it. Okay, it's time to bring it in. So I would just ask, if you are enjoying Ferio Tego, whether it's our Elegancia Generoso, Timeless 10 Years, or any of the Timeless Collection or Metropolitan Selection, go one step further, if you would, and take a photo of it and post it and amplify our brand and amplify our story.
Perfect. I love it. I agree wholeheartedly. Yep. Michael, thank you for coming on, spending a couple hours of your Monday night. We'll definitely see you in a couple of weeks down in Boynton Beach, and actually, hopefully I'll see you. I got it written down here. Hopefully we'll see you at Corona Cigar. So definitely, if anybody, go to coronacigar.com, sign up for their email list. Jeff always puts out the events coming up at all the locations. So if you're going to be anywhere in the Tampa or Orlando area, definitely come down and hang out at a Ferio Tego event coming up soon.
It's going to be with Balvenie. It's going to be awesome.
So right on. Can't wait, and we'll probably see you down at Tampa.
Awesome.
So, all right, Mike. Thanks. Have a great night, man.
Thanks, everybody. Ferio Tego.
Ferio Tego. All right, so everybody start typing in the word cigar for the Amendola family cigars, Tapping Ash and Taking Names giveaway. In the meantime, we'll hear a word from our sponsor, Corona Cigar. All right, it's time for the Amendola family cigars, Tapping Ash and Taking Names giveaway. All right, looks like everybody's typed in. We've got this week we've got from Corona Cigar. It is their February 2023 Cigar of the Month Club shipment. Nice. We actually just got these in. They were running a little bit late this month. I haven't even done the unboxing on these yet. That is going to be tomorrow's chore. So let me share my screen here, and we'll start collecting comments. 22 entries, and we will draw.
What a great interview!
What a fantastic!
Amazing, loved it.
So we got Christopher Yao. Christopher, send me an email, Kevin at cigarprop.com, and we will get that prize pack out to you. Next week, we welcome once again to the show my brother from another mother, Brad Reith of Zeal Cigars. So we're going to be talking about his new endeavor into the soap world, and then we'll be talking as always. Brad. So we got Soapy Brad coming on. Soapy Brad. So make sure you're following all of our partners on the show. Make sure you're following Ferio Tego, all the social medias. Cigar Prop producer Jessica, Kerr Viajante of Stogie Road Cigars. Everything is in the links down below, all the social medias, so you don't have to remember anything. Just look in the links, click them, it'll take you right to the our partners, and then as well as Ferio Tego Cigars. Once again, thank you, JC Newman Cigars, CigarMedics, Amendola Cigars. We are the muscle. Illusione Cigars, deep in flavor, deep in your mind. K by Karen Berger Cigars, Drew Estate, and of course, Experience Acid. And Corona Cigar. I forgot Corona Cigar. Did I say that? Corona Cigar. The ultimate cigar experience. Kerr, leave everybody with some parting words.
I will. First of all, great show, Kevin. Great interview.
It was we had a great interview.
And I know Kevin's famous way. But the video of watching him lock up that store really is, I know for him it was a great new adventure, but it was really heart-wrenching to know that after 90 years to see that was pretty powerful. And I've been to that store. That store is beautiful. It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
It really was. I mean, but you know,
it's like anything, you know, like an era ending type of thing, or a memory, or a feeling. It's those type of things that always makes like a little pit in your heart.
Because we talk about we talk about the impact of the regulations, we talk about the pandemic, but then when you actually see something like that, it really brings it all together. So great video, Kev. Message for the evening is find yourself a buddy. Life is short. Find yourself a good buddy, friend. We don't know what tomorrow brings, and enjoy a cigar.
Right on. Michael will bring you back up here in a second. For everybody else, we'll see you next week with Brad Reith of Zeal Cigars and
Brad.
Big Brad, Soapy Brad.
Soapy Brad.